All right, so I have everything pulled up here, and I'm basically going to walk you through on the fly just everything about the cold calling framework. This also works for warm leads. Your intro would just be a little bit different. But I know we already covered intro in the previous video, so I won't cover that too much in depth, but I'll get right into everything all together just as far as like the overall structure framework. This is exactly how I tailor all of my scripts. So feel free to tweak or use anything that you get from this video to input it into your own script or maybe make adjustments to the one that you have currently. But let's dive right in. So the first part of the framework is obviously going to be your introduction, which again, I know we covered this in the previous video. My introduction is very genuine, it's very open, it's honest, it's to the point. It also engages the prospect pretty easily because my intro gets to the point and it grabs their attention quickly. I don't have to go through the whole, hi, my name's Tim Hodges, this is the reason for my call, and so on and so forth. So it makes it very clear who I'm calling from. I never hide where I'm calling from. I've known some reps to hide where they're calling from and act like they're a potential client or customer, and it just doesn't work well with your prospect once they actually figure out the reason why you're calling. So why hide it in the first place? Just go directly into your introduction, be straightforward with them and honest, and they're going to appreciate you for that. It'll also build rapport with them as well because they'll be able to see that you are an honest and genuine person, and you'll start to gain that trust from the initial 30 seconds of the call. So just as it's written here, begin by introducing yourself and also your company. Be very clear and direct with that. The second part of the script is what I call a summarized quick pitch. So essentially what this is, it's a brief summary of what your company does or what problems you solve. This is basically where you're able to give them maybe like a 30-second elevator pitch on the reason for your call, but again, not stating that specifically. But it'll also grab their attention even more from your initial introduction, letting them know exactly what your company does or what service you offer. So just as it's written here, provide a brief overview of your product or service, highlighting its key value propositions, or what problem can you potentially solve for them. Now, one thing to note, we haven't yet asked them what problems they actually have. So that's going to be in the next section, which is number 3, discovery questions. So here you want to make sure you're asking open-ended questions to find out more about what your prospect's needs and pain points are. So just to kind of give you a list of some of these, we want to basically find out, 1, what their current situation is. 2, are they happy with their current situation? Or if they are happy, is there any changes that they'd make to it? 3, what have they tried before? Has it worked? And number 4 being, what would be the repercussions of allowing that same problem or need to continue without it being solved? So those are kind of just the general ideas of why we ask open-ended questions. This is where we go through our discovery phase and figure out if our product is even a good fit or match for this client. After you've gained all of their pain points and you've discovered more about what their needs are and how your product could solve it, the very next section you're going to go into is just listing any company requirements. So for us, in my previous offer, we had to do a screening process and a background check for all of the contractors that worked with us. So we had to make sure there was no felonies, no violent crimes. If they failed the background check, then unfortunately they weren't able to work with us. We also had some licensing requirements as well. So if there was any licensing that was needed by that state specifically, then all of the contractors that we had signed up to our platform also had to be licensed for whatever specific leads they wanted to take on with us. So any company is going to have their own requirements. The reason I like listing it here is because you can open this conversation up with, now unfortunately we're not able to work with every single customer we speak with. We do have some company requirements, and what that's going to do is pull them in just a little bit further. This will also create a sense of FOMO, if you will. So fear of actually being able to solve their problem or being able to move forward with our solution. And then from there, it's pretty simple. You just gather information from the prospect and fill in the details for any requirements that they might need. And then after we've done all that, we've set the tone for the call. They understand why we're calling. We know what their pain points are. From here, you can go ahead and introduce the pricing for your product or service. So this is where you can get into all of the details for that specifically. Now, the reason I have it as number 5, and you notice that I don't have it listed at the end of all of these separate items, is because for me, I always like to pre-qualify the prospect and make sure it's even a good fit before I go through and spend the next 20 to 30 minutes on the call with them, just to find out it's not something that they actually have a budget for. Now, I have seen it work both ways. I've had reps that have lots of success pitching it after the end of the call, after they've built up all the value and gone through all the information with them, which that's perfectly fine if you're more comfortable doing it that way. For this specific offer though, it was a pay per lead structure, and then we also had a membership or a lead package that they would have to purchase. So here I would always explain just the lead pricing specifically. So I wanted to get the first part of the pricing out of the way. So that way, one, I wanted to make sure they understand what the product is about, what our pricing is. And then once I got verbal confirmation that they were okay with that pricing, then I would continue to move forward into the next part of the conversation. So if your product or service has multiple aspects to your pricing, that's one thing to think about. You could lay one part of the pricing up front and then give the rest after you've built up the value and gone through the entire service. Or if you go ahead and give them the pricing up front, that just allows you to go ahead and explain why your service or product is priced that way, which that'll lead into the next part of the call, which is going to be section 6. So this is where you're going to cover the features, benefits, and solutions of what problem your product actually solves. So for example, if the prospect mentioned during our discovery portion of the call that their main pain point was they wish they had more support with the company that they're currently working with, what we would then want to make sure we go ahead and highlight is that in our service or our product, we have 24/7 support, or we have a direct line of communication between me and you. Whatever it is, this is where you want to start addressing how we're going to be able to solve their problem. So that way it solidifies in their mind that we actually have a solution they need. Which it seems pretty simple. Basically here again, just detail the specific features and benefits of your product and then make sure that it correlates with whatever specific pain point or needs that we addressed during the discovery portion of our call. Number 7, and this will be key in making sure you solidify the trust and rapport you've built along the way up to this point. So what I always do is I send them my contact information directly. Now, it doesn't matter if you have an onboarding team once they signed up. It doesn't matter if there's some other rep that's going to take over the account once everything is approved with this prospect. The reason that we send them our contact information is to make sure they feel comfortable and know that they can reach us at any point. Now, the way that I would do this, obviously not to give out my personal cell phone. You can of course give them your direct office line, or you can give them your email address, but I would actually send them a text message directly to their phone, and I would make sure that they received it on the call before we hang up. So it would be a short text that says, hey, this is 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝗂𝗿. Here is my contact information. Through this number here, you can text me. So if they had any additional questions or if they needed anything else, which this is going to be a huge point for any of the prospects that you speak with, is actually being able to speak with the rep that signed them up and got them interested in the service in the first place. So if you're missing out on this, add this into your script. You're going to see that more value is built and that you'll be able to keep in touch with your prospects even after the initial sales call. So that's going to go a long way by itself. Now, with the contact information, when I would send that over, for it not to be my personal cell phone, I would just go through Google Voice. I set that up. You can use the browser feature, so you can actually send text messages directly from your computer. And that's basically how I managed everything. So if I saw someone calling from a number that I didn't recognize, Google Voice will let you know. If you answer it, it'll tell you press 1 to answer the call. Or you'll also just get the text messages in a separate app. So that way you can keep everything separate from personal and your work life. But again, huge selling point here. Make sure they have your contact information because so many prospects will get lost after they get approved from the sale and they want to reach out to somebody, but they just can't because they don't know how to reach the salesperson that originally signed them up. Which, if you're getting paid a portion of the commission on the sale, you should be making yourself available even after the call. Keep in mind as well, I never really had that many prospects reaching out to me and bugging me for additional information because we did have an onboarding team, so someone was usually passed on the file after I did the initial sales call. But if they had a couple questions here and there, they would reach out to me and I'd be able to answer that, which, if your company pays off of retention, is going to be a huge bonus and also help you out as well on your bottom line. All right, so the next section is also another crucial point in establishing rapport and making sure that the prospect actually trusts you. And essentially what it is, it's a product or service recap. So this is where you're gonna summarize all of the key points during the call to reinforce that they're confident that your product will solve their problem and that they actually understand what it's going to do. So for me, I would always go through and confirm all of the information. I would say what specific tasks or areas we had them set up for to take on leads in, and I would just recover the price and make sure that everything was good to go with that. Once I had verbal confirmation from them that they were good with the pricing, then of course I would continue moving forward to the next part of the script, which at this point, section 9, it's all about just asking and collecting payment. So if you've gone through everything, you've built up value, you've gone through discovery questions, you've given a genuine interest in the problem that they have and how you can solve that, then you at this point have earned the right to assume the sale. So a lot of people have conflicting views and opinions about assuming the sale at the end of a call. I can tell you that I've had tremendous success assuming the sale at the end of my calls. The reason you can assume the sale is because you've built up so much value. They understand, we've recapped it several times. They know what they're buying and they're ready to purchase. That would be the only reason why we go through and ask for payment on a sales call. So from here, like I mentioned, if appropriate, ask for the sale and collect payment details. After you've collected the payment, move forward with number 10, which sometimes you may get any objections or clarifying questions that you might have to ask. So they will ask you for specific things, or they might tell you, well, I'd really like to think about it, but give me some more time on XYZ or whatever the objection is. So from here, it's pretty simple. We want to make sure we're addressing and handling their objections. Of course, if you get objections during the call, you'll handle those along the way up to this point. But we want to make sure we solidify their confidence that our product will solve their issue or problem. And that's pretty much it for the entire framework and structure of my script. Now, of course, because of time constraints for this specific video here, I won't be able to walk you through the exact verbiage of my entire script. So if you'd like access to my full script and how to tailor it for your offer, make sure you check out Six Figure Closer Pro in the classroom section of the Skool community. I also threw in there several recordings of my own calls, just so that way you can see what my exact tonality is like. With that, we'll see you in the next training.